She was the blonde bombshell with a voice like velvet and a stare that could stop time. But one episode, filmed in 1959, haunted Angie Dickinson for decades. Why? What made it so unbearable that she refused to watch it again? Before we dive into the heartbreaking truth, tell us in the comments. Do you think actors should re-watch their most painful performances, type 1 for yes or 0 for no? Let's go back to 1959. By 1959, Angie Dickinson was already a rising star in Hollywood. She had held her own next to legends like Frank Sinatra in Ocean's 11 and was admired for her combination of strength and sensuality. But before that, she was just a little girl. Angie Dickinson was born on September 30th, 1931, in the town of Culm, North Dakota. Angie Brown was the second of 4 children that Frederica and Leo Henry Brown had brought into the world. She was brought up in a humble environment. When Angie was 10 years old, her father, who was a newspaper publisher in a small town, relocated the family to Burbank, California, in the hopes of finding better possibilities during the Great Depression. Angie's ability to eventually enter the world of entertainment would be made possible by this significant relocation, even if it was not immediately evident that she would choose that road. Her father's job served as a source of inspiration for Dickinson's early years, which were characterized by a concentration on academics and an interest in writing. Following her graduation from Bellarmine Jefferson High School in Burbank, she continued her education at Glendale Community College and then went on to receive a degree in commerce from Immaculate Heart College in Los Angeles. When she was younger, she had the ambition to work in journalism or writing. Nevertheless, when she entered a local beauty pageant on a whim in 1953, she ended up becoming a finalist in the preliminary competition for Miss America. This was the moment when fate interfered. Her inherent personality and dazzling attractiveness rapidly drew the attention of casting directors, which led to her landing modest jobs on television as a result of this exposure. Angie Dickinson's ascent to popularity was slow but consistent throughout her career. She made her debut in the cinema industry in 1954 with the Warner Brothers crime thriller Lucky Me. Subsequently, she went on to act in a series of westerns which became her early signature. She regularly was cast in roles that challenged the cliché of the damsel in distress by portraying strong, independent female characters. In the iconic western directed by Howard Hawks and starring John Wayne and Dean Martin, she made her debut in the year 1959 with the role that would become her breakthrough. Dickinson was able to hold her own against 2 of Hollywood's male stars while portraying the role of Feathers a gambler, who was both flirty and intelligent. She displayed the delicate balance of wit and sensuality that would become her hallmark. Angie Dickinson established herself as a leading woman in both cinema and television throughout the decade of the 1960s and the decade of the 1970s together. From the psychological thriller The Killers, which was released in 1964, to the sophisticated heist flick Ocean's 11, which was released in 1960, she acted in a variety of films. She also appeared alongside Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack. Her strong association with Sinatra, which she built over the course of her career, served to further bolster her reputation as a glamorous woman who effortlessly navigated both Hollywood and the social circles of the elite. Even though she was stunning and had a lot of star power, Emily Dickinson was never just a pretty face. Her emotional range was valued by directors, and audiences liked her because of the depth and sensitivity she displayed on film. It was in 1974 when she was cast in the part of Sergeant Suzanne Pepper Anderson in the television drama Policewoman. This was the role that proved to be her most iconic and pioneering performance. A woman in a significant main role in law enforcement was something that was uncommon on television at the time, and the program, which lasted until 1978, was groundbreaking for its time because it featured a woman in that important job. She received critical praise, a Golden Globe Award, and many Emmy nominations for her depiction of the stern yet caring detective Huminda Misor. Hadek. In sin, but Basavli Damasid. The most significant thing is that she demonstrated that a woman can be the only protagonist of a primetime drama, and that she influenced a generation of women to think about pursuing jobs in law enforcement. It was because of Policewoman that subsequent female-led police and action programs were able to get off the ground. While Dickinson was in her latter years, she continued to have a presence in Hollywood that was known and adored. It was in the 1980 film Dressed to Kill that she received critical recognition for her role as a sexually dissatisfied housewife. She continued to act on an irregular basis throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, participating in major films such as Dressed to Kill. During the year 2001, she had guest appearances on television, including a cameo on Family Guy, which let her demonstrate her sense of humor and self-awareness. She also starred in the film Big Bad Love, which was directed by Brian De Palma. Dickinson was able to maintain the grace and elegance that made her a fashion icon even as she began to age. She made frequent appearances at film retrospectives and award events where she was acknowledged for her pioneering contributions to both cinema and television. Currently, Angie Dickinson is recognized as a pioneer in her field. By demonstrating that female characters might be multifaceted, authoritative, and essential to the narrative of a tale, she contributed to the process of redefining the position of women in the media. She is a reminder that beauty and brains are not mutually incompatible, and that enduring success is based on more than simply good looks. Her impact can be seen in generations of actresses who followed in her footsteps, from Sharon Gless in Cagney and Lacey to Mariska Hargitay in Law & Order SVU. Her legacy lives on in the actresses who have followed in her footsteps. Having skill, adaptability, and the bravery to take on positions that question convention are all important ingredients in the recipe. Jean Dickinson, a collegiate football player whose powerful athletic frame and pleasant attitude had made him a star on the gridiron during his years, was Angie Dickinson's first husband. Jean Dickinson was a remarkable figure on the gridiron. Their marriage began in 1952 when Angie was just beginning to establish footing in Hollywood, and Jean was transitioning from a career in athletics to a career in the electronics sector. Both of them came from different backgrounds. As Dickinson's celebrity began to rapidly climb in the early 1950s, the couple's relationship encountered difficulties despite the fact that they presented themselves as a beautiful young couple. Despite the fact that their divorce was not formalized until 1960, the couple eventually divorced in 1956, which was just 4 years after they began their marriage. In spite of the fact that they had ended their relationship, Angie made the decision to continue using her married name Dickinson. By that time, her profession in the film and television industries had already become firmly identified with her name. This particular moniker would go on to become a household name in the world of entertainment. In addition, during this time period, Angie Dickinson built a significant connection with John Kenneth Galbraith, a well-regarded economist and diplomat, as well as with Catherine, his companion. Angie gained a glimpse into a world that was considerably different from her own, one that was characterized by academics, diplomacy, and international affairs, thanks to the Galbraiths, who are well regarded in intellectual and political circles. Because of her acquaintance with the Galbraiths, she was able to pay a visit to their house and subsequently embark on journeys that profoundly broadened the scope of her life. Dickinson joined the Galbraiths on a number of occasions during the time that John served as the United States ambassador to India from 1961 to 1963 under the administration of President John F. Kennedy. This is something that is very noteworthy. Dickinson is mentioned not only as a Hollywood star but also as a thoughtful and engaged visitor who took a sincere interest in the cultures and politics of the places she visited. These visits and experiences are described in rich detail in Galbraith's memoirs Ambassador's Journal and A Life in Our Times. Dickinson is mentioned not only among the Hollywood stars but also among the thoughtful and engaged visitors. Through these contacts, Dickinson's intellect and curiosity were brought to light, attributes that were not often acknowledged in a profession that frequently placed a greater emphasis on physical attractiveness than intellectual capacity. The year 1965 saw the beginning of Dickinson's second marriage, this time to the renowned composer and songwriter Burt Bacharach, who was a significant figure in the realm of popular music in the United States. Bacharach brought with him a world of creative genius and musical invention. He is known for writing a number of successes that have stood the test of time, and for working with musicians such as Dionne Warwick and Dusty Springfield via this collaboration. Dickinson and Bacharach were a pair that was regularly featured in the pages of Life, People, and Time magazines. They were considered to be one of the most glamorous and talked about couples of the era. Their marriage lasted for 16 years, which is a significant amount of time in the entertainment world despite the fact that it was not without its challenges on occasion. During the final years of their marriage, the pair went through a time of separation during which each of them explored relationships with other individuals or with other couples. Nevertheless, there was a connection that existed between them at all times, a lingering relationship that was strengthened by the arrival of their daughter. Angie Bacharach gave birth to their one and only child, Leah Nikki Bacharach, on July 12, 1966. They affectionately referred to their daughter as Nikki. At a young age, Nikki displayed symptoms that were consistent with autism. Nevertheless, at that time, the general public had a limited awareness of autism and diagnostic criteria were still in the process of developing. Dickinson and Bacharach devoted themselves to her care, traversing a voyage that was fraught with emotionally taxing, medically challenging, and logistically challenging obstacles. Nikki's life was defined by challenges including issues with her mental health and the constraints that were put on her as a result of her disability. For example, Angie took on the responsibility of being her daughter's primary advocate and caretaker, and she gave up numerous opportunities to pursue a career in order to concentrate on her daughter's requirements. In a tragic turn of events, Nikki tragically passed away on January 4, 2007, when she was 40 years old. She left behind bereaved parents who had struggled ferociously to provide her with comfort and security. She would never fully recover from the anguish that she had as a result of this loss, which Dickinson subsequently regarded as the most agonizing event of her whole life. Burt Bacharach, whose life and career were likewise significantly affected by their daughter's childhood, passed away in 2023, leaving behind a legacy of music and complicated family relationships. His daughter's life had a great impact on both aspects of his life. Over the course of the 1980s, Angie discovered a new companionship in the form of her relationship with Billy Vera, a singer and songwriter who is best known for his heartfelt hit, "At This Moment." A more humorous and musically charged relationship existed between them, and Dickinson even made an appearance in the music video for Vera's song, "I Can Take Care of Myself," which was released in 1981. Angie was seen in the video not only as an actor, but also as a self-assured and mature lady who was not hesitant to embrace pop culture and her enduring appeal. The time that they spent together was brief but significant, and it marked a turning point in Angie's life, one in which she re-engaged with the entertainment industry from a new and modern perspective. In later years, throughout the 1990s, Dickinson engaged into yet another high-profile relationship, this time with the illustrious broadcaster Larry King. As the presenter of his long-running talk show Larry King Live on CNN, King was a household figure. He was known for his solemn voice and his no-nonsense interviewing approach. As a result of their frequent appearances together at public events, Dickinson and King rapidly became one of the couples who received the most attention from the media. Despite the fact that they did not end up getting married, their relationship was one of mutual affection and respect for one another. Frequently, King would extol Angie's brilliance, elegance, and vivacity, while she would express her admiration for his humor and journalistic mind. Despite the fact that their romantic relationship finally came to an end, they retained a positive relationship and continued to talk positively about one another in interviews. Even after several decades have passed after the film's initial release, the iconic actress Angie Dickinson has publicly declared that she continues to be adamantly opposed to seeing the Western classic Rio Bravo, which was released in 1959 and was a significant turning point in her career. Dickinson herself has very personal and emotional reasons for avoiding a watching of Rio Bravo, despite the fact that it is widely considered to be one of the most famous westerns in the history of Hollywood, and that it holds a treasured place in the hearts of a large number of admirers. Not only does her hesitancy originate from her own self-criticism over her young performance in the film, but it also stems from the enduring memories that it inspires, particularly those that include her co-star, Ricky Nelson, who is a teen idol. Angie Dickinson was still a young star and was just beginning to create a name for herself in the Hollywood industry when she was cast in the role of Rio Bravo. Rio Bravo was her first significant part, and it was against screen titans like John Wayne and Dean Martin. She had previously piled up countless supporting appearances on television and in blockbuster films, but Rio Bravo was her first major role. Dickinson portrayed Feathers, a vivacious and flirty gambler who develops a love relationship with Wayne's character, Sheriff John T. Chance. Feathers ultimately gets romantically connected with Wayne. The experience of sharing the screen alongside such legendary actors was both nerve-wracking and exciting for a young actress who was still trying to find her place in the industry. Since then, Dickinson has admitted that she frequently experienced feelings of insecurity over her acting ability, and fretted that she had not yet gained the skills necessary to compete with her formidable co-stars when the movie was being filmed. The emotional complexity of Rio Bravo does not end with her self-criticism. She considers her performance to be raw and uneven, an opinion that has tormented her for years and is one of the reasons she finds it difficult to see the film even now. However, her self-criticism is not the only point of contention. The late Ricky Nelson, who played Colorado. Ryan, a skilled young gunslinger who joins forces with Wayne and Martin's characters, is another very personal reason why Angie Dickinson does not watch the film. Nelson was just 18 years old when he took on the role of Colorado Ryan. Nelson was already a well-known figure by the time the filming began because of his success in the music industry and his part on the family sitcom The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. Dickinson was in her late 20s despite the fact that they were of different ages. They became close via the common experience of working on a high-pressure, high-budget Hollywood production, which resulted in the development of a genuine and real friendship among everyone on set. Throughout the years, Dickinson has spoken about Ricky Nelson with a sense of warmth and nostalgia. She frequently referred to him as a kind man whose unassuming charm and natural skill made him a delight to be around. Seeing Rio Bravo would be like reliving the face and voice of a young man who was frozen in time, someone she recalls not just as a co-star, but also as a brilliant light who departed the world much too soon. His sad death in an aircraft accident in 1985 at the early age of 45 left a lasting imprint on Dickinson, and seeing Rio Bravo would be revisiting the face and voice of a lost young man. When Dickinson sees Nelson again, he is in the prime of his life, full of hope and innocence. This causes her to experience an enormous emotional response since the agony of that loss continues to linger. Because it captures a specific point in Dickinson's life and work, a time of young promise, professional uneasiness, and personal discovery. Rio Bravo also has a bittersweet character for her. This is because it encompasses a particular moment in her life and career. She would have to rediscover not just the highs of working with giants such as Howard Hawks, John Wayne, and Dean Martin, but also the doubts and anxieties that plagued her as a young actress navigating a male-dominated business. Watching the film would mean that she would have to see both of these things again. In spite of the fact that it was eventually the basis for her future success, the experience continues to be bittersweet since it serves as a reminder of both how far she has come and how much she has had to undergo throughout the journey. In light of this, Angie Dickinson has come to terms with the fact that Rio Bravo is no longer considered a classic of the Western genre, despite the fact that viewers may continue to praise it as such. It is more than just a movie to her. It is a very emotional time capsule that is packed with personal successes, lingering insecurities, and the haunting memory of a young man who was stolen from her too soon. She continues to avoid seeing that particular episode of her life because of the reasons stated above. After decades of quiet meditation and guarded isolation, Angie Dickinson, the legendary actress whose illustrious career lasted more than half a century, has now broken her silence concerning Ricky Nelson, a name that evokes recollections of the golden age of rock and roll and early television glory. Dickinson's career extended more than half a century. Over the course of several years, rumors and suspicions circulated regarding their relationship. However, Angie, who is renowned for her elegance and discretion, made the decision to conceal the specifics in order to safeguard not only her own reputation, but also the legacy of the beloved singer who passed away. After reaching the age of 93, she has made the decision that it is now the appropriate time to express her viewpoint with the intention of casting light on the reality that lies behind their connection, as well as the emotional intricacies that surround it. Not only does Angie's choice to speak freely signal a historic time for fans of classic Hollywood and vintage rock, but it also marks a moment of significance for people who have always appreciated her ability to preserve her dignity in the midst of the swirling gossip that occurs in the industry. Her confessions are accompanied by a great sense of maturity and introspection, and they provide a nuanced picture of a period of time when the demands of the entertainment business and the pressures of celebrity had a significant impact on personal life. She remembers the young enthusiasm and captivating appeal that Ricky Nelson possessed, his seamless ability to captivate audiences both on television and in concert, and the genuine generosity that made him adored by a great number of people, including herself. On the other hand, Angie also discusses the more negative aspects of life, such as the loneliness that comes with being in the public eye, the pressures that come with being a celebrity, and the inevitable heartaches that come with loving someone who is always in the limelight. She tells how their lives collided at a crucial juncture in both their professional and personal journeys, resulting in a bond that was in equal parts passionate and difficult. In her observations, she delves into the difficulties they had, the misunderstandings that emerged, and the profound respect that remained long after their connection migrated into the domain of memory. Angie ultimately opens up, and in doing so she pays a moving homage to Ricky Nelson, not only as a great artist but also as a human being who, like all of us, has experienced love, sorrow, and the search for meaning. As Angie recounts these recollections, she also realizes the influence that the silence had on her own life, how the act of keeping her sentiments hidden impacted her experiences, and how in some ways it has been a sort of protection and survival for her. She now accepts vulnerability as a source of strength, enabling fans and historians alike to get a peek of the person who lies behind the headlines and the character. She has gained the knowledge that comes with age and perspective at this point, a compelling reminder of the intricacies of human relationships, particularly beneath the harsh and often merciless light of celebrity. This rare peek inside her heart and thoughts is a striking reminder of the complexity of human connections. The decision that Angie Dickinson made to break her silence is in the end an act of courage and grace. It is a demonstration of her unyielding spirit and her determination to honor the truth. The article encourages compassion and understanding, rather than conjecture about the lives of celebrities, and it encourages all of us to reevaluate what we believe we know about the lives of celebrities. As a result of her remarks, Ricky Nelson's legacy acquires a new facet, one that not only honors his remarkable ability, but also the deep, sometimes concealed emotional fabric that characterized his life and the people who loved him. At the heart of Angie Dickinson's storied career lies 1959's Rio Bravo, the Howard Hawks Western, that propelled her into stardom. Yet, despite the film's acclaim, Dickinson admitted years later that she simply couldn't sit through one particular episode from that pivotal year. What made a role that initially launched her into the spotlight later unwatchable? She shared in a candid interview that while Rio Bravo remains one of her fondest memories on set, she dreaded watching her scenes captured in the early footage. As she recalled, the hair, wardrobe, and unpolished delivery all felt painfully amateur beside the confident actress she became, particularly in a scene co-starring John Wayne and Ricky Nelson that she once expected to carry her forward. In her own words, "I was just beginning, I looked and sounded like someone auditioning, not the woman I'd become." Even though the film stands today as a Western classic, Dickinson's discomfort with her youthful performance speaks to her high standards and self-critical nature. She also mentioned regretting signing a contract to lighten her hair and adopt a bombshell image. Early on, choices she believed narrowed her opportunities and shaped that early episode into something she eventually wanted to forget. Decades later, at a Turner Classic Film Festival event highlighting Rio Bravo Dickinson, introduced the film with grace, but spared the audience from seeing that awkward early footage again. "It's painful to watch what I now know I could have done with so much more confidence," she remarked. So, while fans celebrate that 1959 moment as the dawn of her greatness, Dickinson's own response reveals how personal growth and the distance between first steps and final form can make even a breakthrough role feel like a lifetime away. Following her debut performance in Rio Bravo 1959, Angie Dickinson experienced a meteoric rise to stardom as one of the most compelling leading women in Hollywood. With her brilliance, seductive confidence, and vulnerability, she managed to hold her own in a cast that was dominated by men. She starred alongside John Wayne and Dean Martin, and she managed to capture viewers' attention. Dickinson subsequently admitted that she was unable to see the film not because of her performance, but rather because of the residual anguish connected with the historical period in which it was filmed. This was despite the fact that she had received plaudits for her portrayal. Through the process of navigating a studio structure that frequently prioritized her appearance over her skill, she experienced feelings of being overshadowed and marginalized behind the scenes. This early experience with popularity influenced her approach to subsequent parts, motivating her to look for characters that had greater depth and agency with whom she could identify. During the 1960s and 1970s, she established herself as a pioneer in the field. Her breadth was demonstrated by her roles in The Killer's Point Blank and Big Bad Mama. However, her performance as Sergeant Pepper Anderson in the television series Policewoman was a groundbreaking achievement, since it was one of the first female-led crime dramas on broadcast television during prime time. Through her participation in the performance, Dickinson became a well-known figure and a symbol of empowerment for women all around the country. On the other hand, the public image of glitz and self-assurance frequently misrepresented a far more complicated private life. Her marriage to the musician Burt Bacharach, which took place in 1965, placed her into the most prestigious creative circles. Nonetheless, the situation between them was anything from peaceful. Nikki, the couple's only child, was not only born premature but also diagnosed with autism at a period when there was very little support or understanding for those with autism. Dickinson's booming career was put on hold so that she could devote herself to Nikki's care. She endured years of emotional strain as a mother and advocate during the course of her dedication. Despite their best attempts, Nikki's difficulties with mental health continued throughout her whole life, and Dickinson was left in utter disbelief when she took her own life in 2007. Dickinson continued to be a well-respected figure in Hollywood during the decades that followed, despite the fact that she featured in fewer parts thereafter. She was careful in her decision-making, declining proposals that she believed would compromise her integrity or perpetuate stale stereotypes. Due to the fact that she stated in interviews that the truth would either be too painful or too hazardous to convey, she never got around to writing a memoir. Her few interviews, on the other hand, provided glimpses into her inner world, which was sculpted by love, sorrow, resiliency, and a stubborn independence that refused to bend to the demands and expectations of the business. Angie Dickinson, who is now in her mid-90s, currently resides in Beverly Hills, where she leads a secluded and private existence. She spends her days engaged in activities such as gardening, reading, and occasionally ruminating about a career that has lasted more than half a century. Her cherished kitties are always at her side. She is no longer interested in being in the spotlight, but her legacy will go on. She shattered limits for women in television, bringing power and sensuality to the screen in equal measure, and led a life highlighted not just by celebrity, but also by personal fortitude. She was a pioneer in the field of television. Many people consider her to be more than just an icon. She is a representation of grace, grit, and the complicated truth that lies behind every legend in the world of silver screen. Angie Dickinson gave the world dozens of iconic performances. But behind that charm, there was often a woman fighting battles we never saw. Have you ever rewatched something that was too painful? Type 1. If yes, 0 if you'd rather leave the past alone. And if you want more untold stories from old Hollywood's brightest stars, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. We've got more legends and heartbreaks to uncover. Because behind the glitz lies the truth.